Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Before the Dawn, Stormbringers, out June 30th on Napalm Records. This album has 9 tracks, 40 minutes in length, and this is the band's 8th full-length studio album. They are a Finnish melodic death metal band. I really enjoyed the design of this record. First of all, it's simple. I love the fact that it starts off with an intro track, an opening track called The Dawn, that connects really well with the rest of the album, and it's a nice way to ease into the experience of listening to this record. From that point on, you see the connectivity between the tracks, an album that has a lot of similarities, but it also finds a very interesting way of changing those similarities around in order to make them differences. When you have an album with these kind of characteristics, what you end up with is a record that's overall very balanced, very cohesive, where every single song belongs on the record and it feels part of a much larger picture, but at the same time you have enough ebbs and flows from track to track to make the experience dynamic, engaging, and entertaining. So all around creating a lot of quality in the overall collective and squeezing all the quality out of the individuality of each and every single song. When it comes into the sound, this record, it's not a very polished record at times, but that also depends on how you're listening to it. I did this test for it because I felt like it was interesting to me that overall the guitar sound felt a little bit gritty, specifically when I was listening to this album on headphones. When I listened to this record in the car, the sound felt bigger. It filled in a lot better, and that grittiness that you detect on the guitars when you're listening to it on your headphones, it's not really present there when you're experiencing the album in a different medium. So it's an interesting record from that perspective. Now, the grit that the guitars have don't really create a negative impact all around as far as the appreciation of the sound, but it definitely doesn't give you that clean, crisp, really super produced style record. This album has a little bit more of a raw feel to it. That grittiness definitely brings a little bit of a live element into the studio, allowing the guitars to have a little bit more character and adding a different kind of texture to the overall experience. But it's an album that depends heavily on that guitar sound, uses the drums in the background, and then infuses some atmospheric elements, orchestrations, keyboard sounds that make the overall experience feel a little bit more robust, a little bit more complete. And they even found some time to allow the bass to peek in and really have its moments to shine. This is the overall sound experience. It's a complete album from that perspective. It's an album that's very melodic and uses different elements in order to infuse heaviness. I think this is first and foremost a melancholic melodic album over anything else that you could think of. It's definitely not a heavy, grunty guitar or even drum sounding album all around. It allows those elements to breathe really well, making the sound a little bit more clear, making the sound a little bit more crisp, allowing you to better digest all the different elements and all the different layers that this album has sound-wise. I already touched on the grittiness of the guitars because I feel like that's an important element. I enjoy the acoustic elements as well because it adds diversity to the overall big picture of this record. But I think the most important element in terms of the guitar sound is the difference that you get from the guitar solos to the overall guitar sound. The overall guitar sound, like I said, a little bit more gritty, a little bit more fuzz, a little bit more distortion on that sound to make the overall impact of the record, to add some heaviness when the album is actually not that heavy. But then when you get into the guitar solos are produced differently. They sound different, a lot more clear, a lot more crisp, a lot more vibrant, infusing a lot of brightness, a lot of energy, and diffusing a little bit of that grittiness that the overall sound has. This dynamic, this duality works really well on this record because it really breaks away from those two elements. You're not allowed to feel like one is blending into the other or almost one is unnoticeable because of the impact of the other. Having these two different production approaches on the guitar side really creates a divide, but an important divide that adds quality to the individual songs. Now, the drums on this record have a lot of soul, and I really feel like that is the soul of this record. They have a sense of connectivity to the way the songs are put together. They're very balanced from beginning to end, and they have enough oomph, but they never really overpower the overall experience. The guitars always feel a little bit more in the forefront. They feel like they have a little bit more thickness to them, and the drums are more in the background, ensuring that the overall sound experience is robust, is complete, but like I said, not overpowering. In between them, you have the bass popping in quite a bit on this record. In several tracks, you really feel the brunt of the bass, and it always comes in a very groovy, but also adding a little bit of darkness to the overall atmosphere. And then you have the orchestrations and the keyboards that very subtly have a positive impact in the overall vibe of the album. When you look at the lyrical content, when you look at how the songs are being delivered vocally, those elements, while subtle, while sometimes almost unnoticeable, play a very important role in making the songs feel better, in giving the songs a better shape, a better understanding, in creating that atmospheric impact that without them, the album perhaps would feel quite naked. So it's an album that uses it but doesn't abuse it, right at the right level at the right time, in order to complement the experience but not become the experience itself. Vocally is where this album surprised me the most. I was expecting this to be more of a clean vocal style record from beginning to end. I was not expecting the harsh vocals to have the impact that they do. I was perhaps expecting them to come in as backing vocals, but not necessarily take the lead in some of the songs and become the main protagonist, pushing the clean vocals more into a backing vocal style role, changing roles from song to song, really creating a lot of dynamics. The vocals are super dynamic throughout the entire record, but using the harsh vocals to complement the clean vocals and vice versa is the winning formula for this album. I honestly feel the clean vocals on their own, without any layers, without any backing, without any overdubbing, they perhaps are a little bit too thin for an album that's already super thin, melodic and melancholic all around. Outside of that fuzziness of the guitars, this album doesn't really have extreme heaviness in its sound. And when you have an album that doesn't have that extreme heaviness in the sound, and then you add super melodic and melancholic vocal style, you start to really dilute and expand the footprint of the overall sound experience. Bringing in those harsh vocals changes the texture of the songs and automatically infuses heaviness into tracks that otherwise wouldn't have any. So I really enjoyed this idea, this delivery, this partnership of two different vocal styles working really well together in benefit of the individual songs. Not necessarily in benefit of themselves, but of the songs, what the songs needed in order to have the right substance, in order to have the right oomph, in order to have the right experience. Vocally, this album was a lot better than I was expecting coming in, because to be honest, that's where I had most of my reservations when it came to Before the Dawn with Stormbringers. I was really worried about how the vocal performance overall was going to fit in this record. I never had any doubts about the sound, but now after listening to this album, I honestly feel like they picked the right momentums for who takes the lead and who sits in the passenger seat throughout the entire album vocally, making the overall experience, like I said, super dynamic. It's been 11 years since they released a record. I think this is a complete home run. Like I said, it surprised me. I had really low expectations for this album, but this record, considering the design, how it's put together, the sound experience. Now, you may not be a huge fan of the grittiness of the guitars, but it really comes down to how you listen to this album. This grittiness almost allows the record to have a playability across different platforms. And like I said, for an album that's not very heavy, at least you're getting some thickness there. And then the vocal performance is the icing on the cake. I honestly felt the balance that they used, the combinations that they used, enhanced both styles and therefore gave extreme quality to the overall album. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Reveries. Great, bigger sound on the guitars with that distortion, with that fuzz there, but still very melodic blend underneath it. Two different styles, two different approaches. When you have that heavier sound or their thicker sound up front, that it becomes almost the calling card of the song. Then adding a second guitar with that melody underneath it, it dilutes a little bit of that heaviness, of that thickness, making the song a little bit more palpable, making the song a little bit more melodic all around, one counterbalancing the other. Now, using cleans and harsh vocals does pretty much the same thing, but now on a vocal sense. The clean vocals on this track really infuse a lot of melancholy into the song, and then the harsh vocals infuse a lot of heaviness into the song, perhaps the heaviest element of the track all around. Having these two elements working together, separated from one another, and then together as one, creates the right amount of movement to make the song super entertaining, super engaging all around. I like to see them coming together in the chorus, one becoming the backing vocals of the other, and then keeping them a little bit separated, giving them each of them their own time in the verses. This works really well. It makes the song feel together. It gives fluidity to the track. It makes the track a lot more engaging, a more controlled song from that point of view in the verses, a little bit bigger, a little bit brighter in the chorus. Complete track using the drums as the heartbeat of the song itself. Next you have Divided. I love the acoustic guitar opening. It sets the mood for the song, and it really creates a nice intro that it doesn't give you a sense of just getting into the track right away. A lot of these songs, it's nice to have a little bit of a build-up. Using the acoustic guitar for that build-up works really well in this track. The harsh vocals kick in and they become the main experience. They become the main protagonist, and then they use the clean vocals as backing vocals as an add-on. This is a nice switch around from what you see in Reveries. In Reveries, you see the clean vocals as the main driver of the vocal experience, using the harsh vocals as the backing vocals in order to create volume, in order to create a little bit more thickness. In this one, you do the opposite way. You're using the harsh vocals in the forefront in order to create heaviness, using the clean vocals behind it in order to thin out at times a little bit of that heaviness. Once again, using the same elements but in a different order, creating a completely different sounding song, a completely different vocal song. Everything about this track becomes very unique from that standpoint. But I really like this change in dynamics, showing you that you could have the same tools and build something completely different. Last but not least, Chaos Star. This one comes in a little bit heavier, with a little bit of a heavier sound, and then you have harsh vocals that really add to that overall heaviness. Using the clean vocals on this track, once again, it thins out the track a little bit. It infuses some melody and melancholy, which is needed in order to make the track feel a little bit more complete. And that melody and melancholy works really well with the overall heaviness that the track has. It also is a track that allows the bass to really pop. It has a very explosive solo. The solo is really impactful on a song like this. The song calls for it, it needs it, and then it gets it. And when it gets it, it allows the track to really breathe. You can feel the movement. It's almost like you can feel the song coming to life at that specific moment. It allows you to see the heaviness of the verses versus the more melodic chorus. But that solo is integral in order for this overall song to work, in order for the song to have the right fluidity, in order for the song to feel balanced all around. This is it. Before the Dawn, Stormbringers, out June 30th on Napalm Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.